Hey everybody, JustinWatchesMovies here, back with another ranking video, this time for all 20 Marvel films, which includes Ant-Man and the Wasp. I feel like we just did this one a couple months ago with Avengers, and then months before that with Black Panther. But we've got to include Ant-Man and the Wasp in this list. We've got 20 movies to rank from worst to best. Before we get started, leave your ranking down below. What is your favorite Marvel film? What is your least favorite Marvel film? And how would you rank them all in between? So let's get this list started. Alright, let's get it started with number 20, Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is a bad film. This movie is unfocused with its villains. I was really enjoying the Mandarin, and when it shifted to a different villain towards the end, that movie completely lost me. I do think that Robert Downey Jr. gives a really good performance as Tony Stark, and the visuals are great once again. The suits are awesome to watch, but I did not like the villain shift, and that's why I think it sits at number 20. Coming at number 19 is Iron Man 2, which is just a little bit better than Iron Man 3. Still not a very good movie. The villain is a little bit better with Whiplash, but they really didn't go too much in depth with his character. This movie does feel a little corny at times, especially when Iron Man is drunk and he is having that party. Certain scenes like that just feel out of place for an Iron Man movie, which the first movie did a great job setting up that character. It just kind of throws certain things aside for the character. I just did not like the route they took Tony Stark. Coming in at number 18 is Thor. I really wanted to like Thor. I really did. I was truly excited for this movie. Great actor, great looking suit, pretty good visuals. This movie really shifted for me. I was really on board with the first half of the movie, with him on Asgard and having those family issues set in place and him trying to deal with his father and his brother. But when he is sent to Earth, I feel like that's when I lose all interest within this movie, because it's a fish out of water movie and some of it's funny. I'd much rather have seen him back on Asgard dealing with Loki and his father and trying to become a better person. And when they sent him to Earth, it just kind of lost all that. I think the first half was really great, set up the character nicely, and then it kind of just took all of it away from him towards the end of the movie. Coming at number 17 is Thor: The Dark World. This is a little bit better, better visuals, so it's a little more darker, a little more Loki, which I did enjoy, the relationship between Loki and Thor. But this movie does suffer from what the first movie had, which was having him back on Earth once again with Jane and focusing a little too much on Jane and on Earth and her friends. We got some improvement though. Visuals were pretty good. The relationship was a little stronger between Loki and Thor, which I did appreciate. But once again, those Earth scenes just kind of got in the way. Coming at number 16 is The Incredible Hulk. I think The Incredible Hulk is a movie that kind of is forgotten within the Marvel movies. It's one of the ones that's completely different from other Marvel films. Because it's, one, I think that it was Edward Norton as the Hulk, and then we had Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. But this movie is really dark. It's grim looking, and I do think that the Abomination is a really cool villain. Really intense fight sequences towards the end of this movie. But they really didn't have that inner conflict between Bruce Banner and the Hulk. They really didn't dive deep into that conflict, which makes the Hulk for a very interesting character because he's battling something within himself. And they really didn't touch too much on that, which I found to be disappointing. Coming at number 15 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I really liked this movie upon first viewing. And then a couple of viewings after that, it kind of made its way lower and lower on the list. The characters are still really cool. They have great chemistry. The acting is great. There's so much going on in this movie, you can't really understand what is the main part of this movie. We have Rocket and Yondu trying to do something, and then there's a relationship between Mantis and Drax, and then Peter and his father, and then there's stuff with Gamora, and then there's stuff with the villains, and there's the side villains, and there's just so much different things going on at once. It kind of just forgot what the main part of the movie was. And I didn't mind certain characters in the movie, but I did mind when it took away from the main part of the movie. It definitely does feel like a side mission for the Guardians of the Galaxy. The first movie felt more like a big mission for them, and it was imperative that they did what they did. And the second movie just didn't have that same feeling. Coming at number 14 is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange has some really cool visuals. and I think that Benedict Cumberbatch is a great choice for Doctor Strange. I loved him learning about his powers and how he can control them and how he can use them for good. It has a nice pace for it. Definitely feels a lot like Iron Man. They kind of are the same character, and then they have to learn more about their powers and they use it for good. Doctor Strange is a very psychedelic movie. It's one of the coolest movies that they have in the Marvel universe. The visuals are great. I love watching this movie just for the visuals. The villain is a little bit on the weaker side, just like a bunch of Marvel movies, but I still find a lot of enjoyment in this movie. Coming at number 13 is Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is the most recent Marvel film, and this movie feels more like a personal Marvel movie. They're trying to find Janet in the quantum realm, and Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne and Scott Lang are trying to find Janet, and then we have this villain, this somewhat villain, Ghost in this movie, but it feels much more of a personal Marvel movie, and I still think it's a lot of fun. Great usage of using small objects to become big objects, and the action's really great. The chemistry between Scott Lang and Hope is great. Once again, the acting is cool. There's a lot of good things about this movie. Coming at number 12 is Iron Man. I love the introduction of Iron Man. I think that Iron Man is a cool character in this movie. Definitely a shift for his point of view on himself, which was nice in this movie. We had him in the beginning and he was developing the suit. And I love that transition for when he came home. He wanted to continue making those suits, and not only for himself, but so he can fight bad guys. So I love the transition of Tony Stark character in this movie. The villain's weak, but I think what carries this movie is definitely the visuals, the suits, the technology, and the character of Tony Stark. It's a really well-written character, and the progression for his character definitely did shine in this movie. Coming at number 11 is Ant-Man. Ant-Man was a great introduction for a smaller Marvel character. Paul Rudd does a great job as Scott Lang, and I love the feel that it's like a heist movie. He's breaking into people's houses and then he comes across the suit, and I love that he was so confused about his abilities and trying to understand it. And utilizing ants in the movie and the jokes in here, it made it for a hilarious, upbeat, fun Marvel film. Coming at number 10 is Avengers Age of Ultron. This is a great looking Avengers film. The cast is great once again. The action is cool. Ultron is a really awesome villain. The one thing I dislike about this movie is all those different dream sequences going on for each of the characters, because they do feel really long, and some of them do feel out of place. Some of them do feel like a setup. Some of them just feel pointless, and it kind of takes away from the thrills of this movie and getting the team together. I think that there were so many cool moments in here, and there's many moments where I'm like really involved in the scene, and then there's a dream sequence, and then I'm just really taken out of the movie. But besides that, the action is great. The introduction of new characters like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were really cool. The visuals are awesome. It's a great Avengers movie, but there are a lot of dream sequences that really just take you out of it. Coming at number 9 is Black Panther from this year. Black Panther is a nicely written character, and paired with Black Panther was one of Marvel's best villains, played by Michael B. Jordan. I loved the villain in this movie almost a little more than Black Panther, and it led for some interesting conflict between Black Panther and Killmonger. This movie has a lot of culture, a lot of great fight sequences. Chadwick Boseman does a great job as Black Panther. It's a movie that I've been wanting to see for a while, and it definitely paid off. Coming at number 8 is SpiderMan Homecoming. I think that Tom Holland does a great job playing Peter Parker as well as Spider-Man. They really understood the character of Spider-Man. He's just a kid in these movies. He's not someone that can control his abilities and understand his role as a superhero. He's still learning about that, and that's what Spider-Man Homecoming did so well, is that he's still learning about his abilities and his role in the world. And this movie also has a really great villain as well, with the Vulture played by Michael Keaton. Really loved his character in here, and I think that Michael Keaton gave a great performance. One thing I wish they would have did a little different in this movie is have much more of Spider-Man's own suits instead of Tony Stark's suits. I wish we would have seen some things that Peter Parker developed for Spider-Man instead of seeing much more of Tony Stark stuff. Coming in at number 7 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel took a bunch of characters that people who don't read comics probably wouldn't know, and they took them and they put them on the big screen all in one place, and they made one of the coolest Marvel movies. Probably one of the funniest Marvel movies. We had a big tree, Groot, a small raccoon, Rocket, Drax, Gamora, and Peter, and a bunch of different characters. They look different, they act different, and they took them all and they made them all work. This was probably one of the biggest gambles for Marvel, and it paid off. This movie is so fun. Visuals are great, the villain's pretty good, but what makes this movie work is the humor and the chemistry amongst all of these characters. Coming at number 6 is Thor Ragnarok. This is what I wanted out of a Thor movie. Him, not on Earth, doing Thor stuff. And this movie is so different from Thor the Dark World and Thor. It's so funny. It's so completely different, which I admire. The visuals are so colorful. Having the Hulk in here is awesome because I always felt like Thor and Hulk had this weird relationship going on, and it definitely strengthened that in this movie. Coming at number 5 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This is much more than just a typical Marvel movie. This is almost like a political thriller. After spending many years being frozen, he has to come to terms with where he is in the world and really trying to learn more about it. He still has his morals intact, and that's what makes Captain America so great. This really challenges Captain America. Winter Soldier is probably one of my favorite villains because they strengthened that relationship in the first movie with Bucky Barnes and how they were friends, and then they flipped it around in the second movie, making him a villain. And what I admire about Captain America is that he's not going to give up on his friends. He's not going to give up on the Winter Soldier because he knows who he is, and he knows that this is not Bucky. And that's why I love watching all of the Captain America movies. Coming in at number 4 is Captain America: The First Avengers. I love the vintage feel for this movie. Red Skull was a really cool villain, and I love seeing the transition of Steve Rogers from being really skinny to being really buff, but still kept those morals intact, and he was really still the same person. He wanted to fight in the war, he wanted to help his country, and even though he had these powers and the suit, he still was the same person. I know on a lot of people's list it's lower towards the bottom of the list, but I still really enjoy it for the look of the movie and how they had handled the character. Coming in at number 3 is the First Avengers movie. This was such a grand movie, a big cinematic experience. Bringing all these different characters onto the big screen for the first time was something not really done before. And yes, some characters got some minimal screen time and some got a little more than others. But what this movie did so well was it took all these characters with different abilities, brought them all together, and you really understood them already because a lot of them already had their solo movies. Now, I was a little hesitant on having Loki as a villain because I wanted to see someone different, but it still worked out really well. Great fighting sequences. This movie was intense and it had a lot of things at stake, which made this movie feel very important. Coming at number 2 is Captain America: Civil War. This is such a good movie. I love the conflict between Iron Man and Captain America because I thought I would never see a movie where two of Marvel's biggest characters would fight against each other. And it kind of made me a little emotional because I never want Iron Man and Captain America to fight. But it just shows that Marvel's not afraid to take risks. They're not afraid to change things and work towards the future. They're not afraid to have their two biggest characters duke it out on screen and really put their company and really put their movies at risk. And it was interesting to see different characters' points of view. Why is someone on Team Iron Man's side, or why is someone on Team Captain America's side? And it was interesting because I'm Team Captain America, but I was able to understand a little bit of Team Iron Man's side, and which made me challenge my own thoughts about the characters. Introduction of Spider-Man was really cool. Black Panther had a lot to do in this movie. Having them protect Winter Soldier was awesome as well. There's so many good things about this movie. There was humor, there was great action scenes, and there was a lot of conflict, which made it emotional and intense as well. But my favorite Marvel film is Avengers Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War was an emotional ride. It was just a crazy movie. I loved the villain of Thanos, and I loved watching him try to obtain the Infinity Stones and having all of the Marvel characters, from Doctor Strange to Drax, from Spider-Man to Black Panther, everybody in this movie trying to do one thing: stop Thanos. No matter where they are in the world, they were there to stop Thanos. And it was so cool to see all these characters on one screen. There were so many action sequences that were so intense, the emotional moments all the way towards the end. There were so many things in this movie that pleased me as a comic book fan, and I can't wait to see what they do next year. So there you guys have it, all 20 Marvel films ranked from worst to best. My feet hurt. How would you rank all of these Marvel films from worst to best? Leave your ranking down below. I am happy that I don't have to do this again till next year with Captain Marvel, and then we got one again with Avengers, and then Spider-Man. Thank you guys for sticking around for this ranking video all the way towards the end. You guys are the best as always. This is Just Watch Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.